Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a video covering my impressions on two IEMs for competitive gaming related purposes. I've got the Simgot ET142, which is a hybrid with one planar driver and one bone conduction driver. And I've got the Grit from a new company that I'm not too sure how to pronounce the name, if it's Apevoix or something along those lines. But this is the Grit, and you can see that it comes in this really nice red carrying case, something that could even double down as a IEM carrying case for anybody that is on the go, just pretty heavy duty. And that bright red and white font just looks pretty dope. The Simgot ET142, I think, has one of the nicest default cables for a Simgot IEM. I think this is a step in the right direction for them. It's got a really nice braid, and then at the Y split, it does go into a single strand for both the left and right. 2-pin cable here for both of these IEMs, but the Simgot cable does have an interchangeable termination. Just make sure that when you are putting that back in, you line it up properly so that you don't have any polarity issues as a result of the cable. The ET142 is a all-metal chassis, and it's got Simgot branding there on the faceplate, and then also a small little Simgot in cursive there towards the front of the shell. It is, again, 2-pin there at the front. It is vented, and then the nozzles here are interchangeable that you can unscrew them. There's a gold set in the box, but I did prefer the default blue nozzle. I find that the gold nozzle just adds a little bit more shoutiness into the area of the peak between 2 to 3K. To me, the blue just sounds a little bit better. The nozzle is not as wide as the Grit, and the shell is much smaller, but I do prefer the ergonomics on the shell on the Grit more than the ET142, and I'll get you guys a little bit closer so you guys can see the faceplate on the Grit, which is this really cool looking carbon fiber mixed with this gold speckle, almost like the Mest MK2, and then just a little bit of branding in silver towards the bottom. But you can see that the back is vented with 3 holes, 2-pin cable, and the front side is actually more translucent, so you can see those drivers in there, including the BAs and the dynamic driver. Me personally, I have a better fit for longer duration with the Grit. It's a lot lighter than the all-metal chassis on the ET142, and despite being bigger, again, I just have a better fit with the ergonomics here compared to the ET142. But keep in mind, it is a wide nozzle, so if you have issues with wider nozzles, keep that in mind. The only thing I noticed with the Grit is if you hit the side or you hit the chassis at all, you will feel like a bit of like springy vibration. And I'm not quite sure what's causing it. I don't hear it ever when I have audio playing. So if I'm listening to music or something in game, I don't feel that or hear it. But if I'm talking, coughing, or something like that without audio playing, I do get that sense of vibration. The cable on the Grit does feel fantastic. Again, a braided cable. I think it's a nice cable for the price range. It's not an interchangeable termination, but the Y-split does have kind of like a carbon fiber look to it as well as near the termination. So 2-pin cable again, and a nice cable for this particular price range. Now, getting into gaming, I think both of these IEMs actually perform pretty well in a multitude of titles. Starting with Valorant, when you go from the Grit to the ET142, you almost instantaneously feel this sense of like staging expansion and this extra sense of airiness. But I don't find it actually helps in comparison to the Grit. The Grit has a really nice staging that doesn't feel too far, doesn't feel too close. Footsteps on the low end seem to shine through a little bit more. They sound more organic, as well as gunfire, so they're more prevalent in the tuning. The gunfire doesn't quite feel as bright. It does feel as though it has a little bit more of this organic rumble on the Grit in comparison to the ET142. And again, keep in mind the ET142, that peak between 2 to 3K, might feel some fatigue depending on how you sense and perceive that region. So the Grit to me in Valorant feels a little bit more organic. The soundstage to me works a little bit better. The imaging in terms of horizontal, depth perception, verticality, everything really nice. And the separation and layering here I think works quite well. And that might be the dynamic driver handling the low end, the BAs handling the mids and treble, and then the bone conduction driver actually handles the entire frequency range. And that, I think, is helping here with some of the staging and separation. The ET142, though, really does separate well. But when you move to Apex, I do think that a lot of the gunfire starts to become a little bit too spicy and a little bit too hot, and then it loses out on the separation and layering that I do feel I get on the Grit. The Grit just working better in those situations, in those scenarios. And I do find that walking up to buildings, because of the kind of less bright and less extended staging, I'm picking up on the depth perception of footsteps where people are in buildings more on the Grit than the ET142. Again, the ET142 is still going to be, both of these IEMs are getting on the wallhack certification tier list, but I'm giving the edge to the Grit. The depth perception, the imaging, separation and layering still very good on the Simgot ET142. It's just a little bit more of like deer in the headlights feeling when you've got a lot of gunfire and then grenades going off, because it gets a little too shouty at times in the 2 to 3K region and things just get a little bit too spicy. Whereas the Grit is really pulling through and keeping everything together in intense moments. I'm still hearing slides, I'm hearing climbs, I'm hearing with a greater emphasis when somebody's shooting at a distance. I feel like I'm rotating my crosshair even faster and with better localization on the Grit than the ET142. So the Grit right now, I'm placing at an A- on the wallhack tier list, and I might even bump it up to an A, but I need to do more A and B testing with other things in that A and A- region to see if I'm going to bump up the Grit, but a really damn good IEM for competitive gaming purposes for Valorant as well as Apex Legends. The Simgot ET142, again, I still think it's great for gaming, but it's going to be at the B+ to B region. Not quite as good as the Grit, in my opinion, from what I'm hearing subjectively in different scenarios that I stress test in game. So guys, that is going to be it for now. The Grit coming in again right now at an A-, might bump up, but I need to do some more A and B testing with other things in the A- to A range. Right now, I do think that for Call of Duty, it seems to be performing a little bit better. It does have a little bit of a bump in that sub and mid-base region, and things that are a little warmer seem to work a little bit better in Call of Duty, particularly the new map of Resurgence. I think it has great layering, great separation so far, and despite having a base that doesn't feel quite as fast as something like the Arete, it's got a little reverb to it. But if you were looking for something with a little bit more warmth than the Arete, the Grit definitely provides. It will keep the gunfire a little bit tuned down in things like Apex, but it doesn't feel as airy in Apex as well. So it's kind of a give and take, but I do feel that the imaging, verticality, the separation and layering so far have been absolutely fantastic in Apex. So again, it'll be an interesting A and B test with the Arete and the Mangird Tea Pro. The ET142, I do think that it works well for gaming, but things, again, its flaws are this elongated stage. It's like got this sense of air that's a little bit too much, and there is a fall off in this sense of urgency and emphasis at Valorant. When people are shooting you at a distance, you get this less of a sense of like, oh man, somebody's shooting me at a distance. So there's at times a little bit of a delay in getting your crosshair over, or the sense of just realization in certain instances. Even things that are closer to you feel a little bit pushed further. Overall, like the imaging was really good. And the separation and layering seemed to be great as well. In Apex, the issue was just a lot of gunfire, like 301s, prowlers, etc. When there's a lot of it, became kind of like a deer in the headlights type feeling, with being a little shouty, a little bit just too much to be able to circulate out. The Arete seems like it has the most balance. It's the most balanced set of the three, in my opinion. But the extra, again, mid-bass and a little bit boost in the lower end, I do think footsteps seem to pop out more in the lower end in Valorant. And in Apex, again, the gunfire is tuned down a little bit. So if you've tried the Arete, think of a Still a nice balance, but a little bit warmer. Footsteps will sound a little bit thockier. Gunfire will sound a little bit more of a lower end emphasis as well. And the Grit is a really nice performer. So again, more A and B testing to come to really see if I'm going to bump it up. If I do bump it up to an A, it will be the cheapest set in that territory on the wallhack certified tier list. So keep an eye out. I will try to wrap that up along with a lot of budget sets before the end of the year. I hope it helped, guys. If it did, please leave a sub to the channel. See you guys in the next review. Peace.